My big question to you is what if the reason people struggle to stay disciplined isn't because they need more willpower in some way, shape, or form, but their nervous system never wanted to repeat that habit in the first place? That is the big question I have for you today. So we got to look at habits today. We're going to take a hard look at it. We're going to look at habits in terms of desirable. Do I desire that habit? And is it manageable? Is it manageable emotionally and nervous system wise? That's the big question. Because you could grab all of these habits from all these different people, but if they're not desirable, like you don't desire them, and they're not manageable, and you don't understand why you're doing it, then something to look at. So we need to unpack this today because habits, they last when they're desired, you want them, and they're manageable. Your brain is always working on feeling and emotion, and it repeats the very things that feel rewarding. So if you feel rewarded, your brain says, "Ooh, I like that," and just starts repeating. Okay. The body avoids anything that's too stressful. So when it comes to your nervous system, if that habit is too stressful, you won't follow through. A good example of this would be smoking, for example. People will smoke and they tell themselves mentally that I'm relaxing when I smoke. When in actuality, when they don't smoke, they equate that to stress and the chemical feeling that's going on. So their nervous system throws them back into smoke very quick. So your body avoids what feels way too stressful. And discipline is not always about pushing harder. A lot of people think that is. People want to grind and shove and push. It's not always about that. Consistency does indeed win. At the end of the day, consistency will beat intensity. That's very true. But we have to be able to count our tiny wins. And where the failure is happening, where a lot of people are failing online, is they are counting their win, but then comparing those wins to everyone else, not realizing that your journey is an independent journey separate from the journey of others. So what do? We take those wins and we compare themselves, or we discredit them or discount them and talk bad about them or don't care about them. We sweep them aside and say, so what? Let me compare myself to the rest of the world. That's what happens. So the tiny wins create momentum and support your identity and the growth of it. But if you're not counting it, then they just simply pass you by. So motivation has the intrinsic and extrinsic. There's internal motivation and there's external. Internal will win. However, there are people that use external things to motivate themselves, like another person, for example. Give you an example. I quit smoking for my nephew. Now, he was just a baby at the time. And I said, I'm going to quit smoking because I, want to see him grow up. But at the end of the day, I looked deeper on that and realized that it wasn't for my nephew. It was so I could be healthy. And as a repercussion of becoming more healthy, then I was able to see him grow up. So it wasn't just for him. It was part of it. He contributed to the idea, but it was about my identity taking on a healthy self-concept, a healthy idea, a healthy body, and having that healthy idea in my head said, okay, I'm the reason. My health is the reason, but the nephew is like the trigger. You can think of it that way. So the motivation starts your habits. They start things, but it's the repetition and the repeating of patterns that continue them. You become what you repeat. You become what you actually absorb. So here's the deal. If you have a habit and it's totally overwhelming you, then that resistance goes up as a result because your nervous system gets a little bell like ding, 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 nervous system, hey, and the nervous system starts going completely wild. So resistance increases completely. Now, when you are working with that habit, if you reduce the emotional intensity behind some of those patterns, then what happens is you're able to move through that habit without any external pressure or overwhelm. So that's where it's really important. Your nervous system wants efficiency. And if there's a habit that you undertake that makes you more nervous or makes your nervous system just go wild off the charts, and what happens, you will backslide on that habit. What I've seen over the years is like if a person decides to overhaul their entire refrigerator, that habit fails quickly. because it's happening too hard, too fast, too soon, too much, that the nervous system is screaming like a pterodactyl. So you have to be able to feel capable along the way. And when you become more and more capable, that window of tolerance extends, goes further, which is important. And the small actions, small repetitive actions, do a great job of reducing that avoidance. The more you make your nervous system scream like a pterodactyl, the more your nervous system will start to resist that new habit and you'll backslide very quickly. So if you reward yourself, if you count your wins and don't compare them to the rest of the world, and you reward yourself with healthy rewards, that can actually increase your action. Even if you gamify it a little bit, have win streaks and be able to really count your wins outside of the rest of the world. And we have to be careful about whose measurements and whose habits and whose results that we're borrowing, because it worked for them, but it may not work for you. The exception is not the rule. That being said, when we have those rewards and we track our wins, that increases our action, which does a great job. And meaning, we are meaning-making machines, so our meaning increases our level of commitment. So when you say, all right, I'm doing really good, I'm doing awesome, I'm getting some headway here, it's that meaning that keeps you going. But at that point, it's updating your identity, it's updating who you are. But if you were to count that as nothing, because you have the power of interpretation, if you interpret that meaning as your results equal garbage, you will backslide faster than anything, because you didn't count your wins. You compared them to the rest of the world, or you judged them extremely hard as a result. And that is the reason why certain people's habits fail. They could follow atomic habits, they could follow other habitsism, and they will fail. And the reason why is because of the fact that they're not having compassion and self-compassion for who they are and what they're doing. When they get stressed, that stress kicks in, it throws a wrench into the machine when it comes to consistency. And that impacts their nervous system. That also makes them backslide. When people are familiar, when things are familiar, you will go back to your old ways, and those old ways will become automatic again because it feels comfortable. But when we look at the habits that are sustainable over time, even though they're challenging, that's okay. If you challenge yourself just enough, like you're not coming out of your comfort zone, just to the edge, then the beauty of that is it's not exhausting you anymore. It's sustainable. That's where it becomes important. That's why I said the habits have to be manageable for your nervous system and desirable. When we are changing, and we're changing for the long term, it is totally created on the go every single day through repeatable action. And those are repeatable because actions create evidence. Now, there's 6 ways to increase desire, and desire is important too, because if you don't have a strong enough desire, you simply won't care to create a habit. You have to attach a given habit to something that's enjoyable. If you're a person that, yes, doesn't like to do certain habits in the morning, maybe playing some music will make that enjoyable. That's where there are 3 types of emotional people, and they have the most difficult issue with repetition. Okay, those 3 types of emotional types have difficulty with repetition because they feel that routine is like punishment. But when you start to attach those routines and habits to something enjoyable, something that's emotional, you can actually move yourself in a better direction. You can make your rewards very immediate as well. Like if you've accomplished something, make the reward immediate, but you have to consider what is a healthy reward, what's going to fuel a new direction versus what's going to throw you back. And when we look at the very first step, and sometimes you just have to take the first step, it doesn't have to be the biggest one, it has to be the smallest one. And those first steps have to be ridiculously easy, so easy. But then you're bumping it up a notch, just a little bit. The second step can be a bit more. We have to have a logical progression. And when you connect your habits to a healthy identity, you have to consider how you talk to yourself. How do you talk about yourself in the past, and how you talk about yourself now? When you say, I'm the type of person that works out every day, or I'm the type of person that fill in the blank, that is a present tense identity. And that's important. You need that. But when you also say, I became the type of person that works out every day, and pushes away, any type of distraction. That's past tense speech, but it's just as valuable. At the end of the day, when you're having these habits, you want to add your own personal meaning, and we are meaning making machines. So the question I opened in the beginning is going to bring us to the final answer right here, is maybe, just maybe, that the question was never, how do I become more disciplined? But maybe it was, how do I make this habit have meaning and be rewarding enough and safe enough that my nervous system doesn't scream like a pterodactyl and I want to repeat it tomorrow. So that's where it gets important, because you have to have habits that are desirable, manageable, and repeatable. You become what you repeat, you become what you absorb. Thank you very much. Don't forget to see me on the next episode in the next video. Take care.